I just need a minute to simp for Hawk. Hi friends, it's Mrs. Meralda. You can call me Jess, and welcome back to my channel where I don't really know what the direction is yet because we're figuring it out together. So if you want to know what it eventually becomes, subscribe, like, follow. This video is everything I read in January. So we're going to talk about all the books I read in January, which was a total of 16 books. That for me is actually quite a lot. I typically read maybe about 5 or 6. Lately I've been reading like maybe 10, but 16 is a lot. I owe a lot of that to audiobooks. I've been really getting into audiobooks. We're gonna go and get started. I got my big old basket of books. Oh geez. And that's just the physical copies. Of course, I don't have the physical copies of audiobooks. Come on, guys. Come on. So these are in no particular order, and I'm just gonna talk randomly about them. I might not even tell you what they're about, but I'm gonna link their Goodreads below so you can go read the description if you're interested in reading it. So without further ado, the first books we're gonna talk about are the Heartstopper series. First of all, I just wanna say I'm very upset about this dilemma right here. What is this? What is happening? I think one is like UK and the other one's US, and I don't know which is which. I read volume 2 and volume 3 in January. I actually read book 1 in December and I loved it. Book 2 made me cry like a little baby. It resonates so much with the book. There is a bisexual representation in the book. There's lesbian representation. There is transgendered representation. So it's just a really nice LGBTQ plus book. Also, it's coming to Netflix, so get on that. Next up, we have Dance of Thieves. I actually buddy read this with Danielle, Kate, and Louisa, and those are my Booksta friends, and I'm gonna tag their @s here so you can follow them because they're awesome people. I give this one 4 stars. It was pretty good. The first 50 pages, I was kind of lost. And then I was like, oh wow, stuff is actually happening. I'm really intrigued. 100 pages in, it was like really, oh my God, action packed, let's go, you know? All this information that was like good information. And then all of a sudden, like in the middle of the book, stuff got kind of resolved a little bit, not really. But then I just kind of lost interest. So I don't know why. It might have just been the state of my mind in that moment. It's still a really good book. I rated 4 stars because the writing is incredible. I really liked it. It just wasn't like an overwhelmingly great book. It was just like, it was a good book, you know? So that's how I feel about it. It's an enemies to lovers, so the romance isn't like super in your face and the tension is high. So we love that. The next book is Ash Princess, and I buddy read this with Jessica and Carrie, and they're my Booksta friends. And this was a very generic YA novel. There was nothing wrong with that. I just really wasn't vibing with it, so I give it 3 stars. It was just basic. But that doesn't mean it's bad. Again, like basic doesn't mean bad. It just, to me, I didn't want basic. So, and all my ratings are based off of like how I felt with the book, how the book made me feel, not necessarily how good the book is. So please take my ratings with a grain of salt. Okay, the next book is The Times I Knew I Was Gay, and this is actually a graphic novel similar to Heartstopper. Heartstopper is a graphic novel, which I love their artwork. I think when I started this book, I started to compare it a lot, which is a problem. I shouldn't have done that. I just wasn't a fan, to be honest. I give this one 3 stars because the art was like sloppy to me. It took up most of the page, but it was still like messy, and there weren't really a lot of distinctive features between the characters, so it was kind of hard to differentiate like between who's talking and what they're saying and things like that. There was not a lot of text, so but when there was text, the story was kind of choppy in the way it was told. I think this is a graphic memoir, so it is about the author and her story with finding out that she's gay, but I just felt like it was a little bit sloppy, and that's why I give it 3 stars. But graphic novel, it took me like 20 minutes to read. If you want to just pick it up just to at least resonate with it if you do. Next up, we have A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and this is the sequel to From Blood and Ash. I just need a minute to simp for Hawk. Okay, I really enjoyed this book. This is a sequel, like I said, to From Blood and Ash, and From Blood and Ash was one hell of a book. It's about vampires and there's werewolves, which I had no idea going into it. I was like, I don't know what this book is about because I don't really read the synopsis of books. And then like all of a sudden there was blood sucking and I was like, huh? Where'd this come from? Which, by the way, the blood sucking scenes, hot. Very hot. It's really, really good. It's very action packed and it's like there's a lot going on in here and it ends in a cliffhanger. I personally liked the first book better. I give both of them 4 stars though. They're both pretty good books. Next up is Aftershocks. This is a memoir. I received this as an advanced reader's copy. I was like, oh, first dibs, you know, I annotated it a little bit. It's a really good memoir. I give this one 4 stars. It's about kind of not really knowing where to call home because maybe you're born in one place and your parents are from another, or you move to another place and it's like, where do you have roots? So it's about that and the process of finding yourself and going through grief and loss and trauma. It's a very, very good book. I highly recommend it. Next up, we have Heartbones, and I buddy read this with my booksta friend Jessica, and I really enjoyed this book. It was kind of like a summer fling type of book. I don't normally read books like that, but I really enjoyed this one because it had a plot and because the characters actually had personality and they weren't just trying to have sex all the time. Like there was depth to the actual characters. So I definitely appreciated that. This is my first Colleen Hoover book and I am really excited to continue reading her books because her writing is really easy to read. She doesn't add fluff to her writing. She just gets to the point. This is basing it off of this book. I don't know about the rest of her writing, but if it's anything like this book, then her writing is very quick to read. I really appreciate books like that that are to the point and still get a really good message across. So recommend Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. Next up, we have The House in the Cerulean Sea, and oh my goodness, this book is so sweet. This book reminded me of kind of like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, which is a cartoon. It was really sweet. It was like a nice hug. It was just like a nice little palate cleanser between like heavy reads and heavy fantasy and a lot of world building. I mean, it has some world building, but it's like magical. It's about magical children and a social worker who's in charge of ensuring their safety, and he basically finds more about himself than he expected, and we always love some character growth, so I'm here for that. The next book I read was Oona Out of Order, and oh my goodness, this book is so interesting. I read it on audiobook and I was so intrigued by the concept of it. It was really unique. It's about Oona and she's trying to discover herself while jumping through time. There's a lot of time jumps in this one, so if you're not a fan of time jumps, move on. I really recommend it. I give it 4 stars. The main character makes some stupid decisions sometimes, but you know what? Don't we all? Don't we all? We do. So the next audiobook I listened to was Everybody Looking. This one was a really sweet book. It kind of had a time jump as well. It was like kind of like in the past and then in the present. It was a little confusing in the audiobook because it did switch without prompting me that it switched, so I didn't know what era we were in when it switched. It was a really interesting story, really sweet, had a lot of nice themes. I really enjoyed that one. I give it 4 stars. The next audiobook I listened to was Red at the Bone, and I give this one 4 stars. This one is about like a generational story. It has to do with 3 different generations in 2 different families. It just talks about the effect of teen pregnancy on not only the pregnant person, but also everyone around that person's family. The next audiobook I read was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. Wraiths? Wraiths. Wraiths? Wraiths. Wraiths. I can't say that word. The next audiobook I listened to was The Song of Wraiths and Ruin, and that one I give 4 stars. I read this one as part of a book club that Tina hosts on Bookstagram. I really like this book. It had a lot of magic in it. It's the story of 2 different people and they eventually meet and how their story intersects. One of them is trying to save his sister and he needs to kill the princess, and the princess is trying to revive her mother who just died and she needs to kill a king for that. So I give that one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Next up we have Saint X, and this is a book I read on audiobook as well, and I did not like this book at all. I felt like the story was so long. It dragged forever and ever and ever. And at the end, it felt like we got nowhere. There was not really a resolution. And I mean, not that there needs to be every time, because some of the books I've read did not have resolutions, but it just felt so unsatisfying. There's a lot of point of views that we really didn't need to have. Like, the writing was okay. I just didn't like the story or how it was told or the characters or what happened or how it ended or the middle. I liked the beginning, sort of. So I read Den of Vipers on ebook. Oh, what to say about Den of Vipers? First of all, this is a very, very X-rated book. It is not for children. It is definitely 18 and over. I also don't recommend that you read this book if you are easily triggered. There are a lot of triggers in this book. Sexual assault, domestic violence, blood and gore, violence. There's probably more, and I'm probably not remembering them all, but there's just a lot. If you're okay with those and you can get past those, then the book is just porn with a plot. And I say with a plot loosely, because the plot is also kind of vague. I'm not really sure where the story went. The character development was questionable. Now, the porn part, sex scenes, and the way that it was written, I actually like that. That's about the only thing I liked about the book. The sex scenes were very explicit. There's a lot of blood involved in the sex scene. So again, if you're like super sensitive to these things, move on. This ain't the book for you. I give this one 3 stars just because there's a lot of things wrong with it, but I did enjoy it for the most part. The last book I read is actually a comic book, and it is called Saga. I read the first volume, which is 6 issues. I really enjoyed it because it's really weird. It's kind of sci-fi. There are a lot of explicit scenes in it as well, and there is violence and there is sex, and there are very pornographic images within the pages. So I do recommend it for 18 years and older. I give Saga 5 stars. It was so good. I really enjoyed it. The plot is interesting. The story is actually progressing. I have nothing bad to say about it so far. Okay, that is all of the books that I read in January. I didn't really explain what most of the books were about or why I liked them or why I didn't. In the comments below, let me know how many books you read in January and which one of those was your favorite one. Make sure to like and subscribe, and if you want to follow me on any other platforms, my social media and other stuff is going to be linked down below. Okay, bye!